All right, let's open it up. This is a 2008 Polaris 400 HO carburetor. So first thing, we're going to use the punch like I always do. Just wake them up a little bit. Excited. You never know what you're going to find inside these cars. They've been sitting a long time. Sometimes they drain them of fuel and they look fine. Other times they almost don't even look like carburetors. They're so bad. Yeah, okay, not bad. Not bad at all. Looking good. I don't mind. That's all right. That's all right. It's our mixture screw. We're going to pull that out of there. That little plug. Just put a screw in there. We'll yank it out. Needle is not stuck. All right. So what I'm going to do is, before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and pull the top diaphragm off. Hopefully this is in good shape too. Remember, there's a spring underneath here, so pay attention to it when you're taking it off. There's a spring in there. Stuck to it. Let's see. Careful here. We don't want to rip this. It's stuck to it. It looks good. It looks like it's in good shape. It's just been on this for a really long time. You want to get it off because you don't know if there's any dirt or grime or any damage to the spring. The needle needs to come out. Like, this has to come off. So I know some people might be saying, just leave it on there. See the spring? Nice and easy. And we're free. Like, you see all that, you want to get that clean. This diaphragm looks fine. Yeah, that's good. No problem at all there. All right, so we're going to get all this nice and clean. I'm going to dunk this whole thing now, before I touch it, into my my heated pine saw. And I'll pull all the jets out and drop all the jets into a jar. Now what I'll do is I'll take the jets out, put them in this jar, and then I hang that with this little wire into the pine saw. And it gets all nice and clean. This is our main jet, washer. Just popping this pin out. This is a float pin. You want to get this out because you want to take a look at your float needle and make sure that's good. If you want to polish the float seat. So now our float is out. Let's see, needle looks good. Now what I'm going to do so it just doesn't float on me is I'm going to stick this back in here. And I'll let it soak a little bit in the pine sol so it just helps it. Okay, so now with that sitting in there, it won't come apart. Let me get that pilot jet out of there. All right, pilot jet's out. So now we're going to get this out of here. This is the plug for the mixture screw because you want to get that out when you're cleaning it. I'm going to take a screw and screw it into there. I have to make that hole a little bit bigger. You don't want to damage the screw underneath it, so you're just trying to get it through the cap. Alright, so there we just broke through the cap. Most of these carbs, you only got a millimeter or so past it, so you don't want to just go hammering down the drill in there. Get a good, there you go, you see it turning, watch. See the whole thing turning. So I'm just going to screw this in a little bit. And then we're going to just grab it, wiggle it around, and pull it right out. And there we go. Underneath that is our flathead and our mixture screw. So let's see what it's set at before we change anything. And then we'll take that out as well. Wow, unusual, 3 1/4. You remember what we have in here, right? We got our mixture screw. Okay, we got our mixture screw right there. We're going to have our spring. Okay. We're going to have our washer. So our washer and our O-ring are stuck in there, so I'm going to spray some carb clean and help loosen it up. Yeah. I'm going to soak it and then pull that out. Cool. All right, I'll let them sit in here for probably a half hour, and we'll come back and check it out. Looking good. All right, I'm going to take it out, and I have a bath of water down here. I'm going to dip it in and clean it out. Spray down some WD-40. I got gloves on, and then I'll blow it dry with some air, and then we'll see you back up on the carb studio here. Stand by. All right, so I got everything out of there now. I got this cleaned up. I got came out good. The jets came out nice and clean. I mean, look at that. That is straight out of there. I didn't do anything to that. Looks like new. The spring got a little darker. You know, the pine sol, if you got it mixed really strong, it affects things a little differently. So just pay attention to it. Look in there, and you know, I look in on it periodically, pull it up, and just check on it. So let's get this pin out of here. Now what I'm going to do here is I have a new O-ring for this seat, and I highly recommend that you change that, because it leaks and fuel will leak around that needle seat, and even though your needle and float height is correct, fuel will be coming around that outside edge and you'll still have a problem and you won't be able to figure it out. So make sure you replace that, and I'll show you what's involved. It's really simple. It's just something that you don't want to overlook. Inside here looks really good. The needle seat looks fine, nice and shiny. A pine sol does a really good job on brass and stuff. So we're going to go ahead and take this retainer out. And that holds it in there. And let's see, sometimes you take them out and they're still solid, but a lot of times that O-ring is worn out and it'll wobble around. This one's in here pretty good. Alright, and that's the O-ring we're looking for. And I'm not grabbing anything tight, no marks or nothing on here, but this is the O-ring here that you want to replace. And if you look at it, you can see it was kind of deformed when it was put in a little bit flat in there. And those are the kind of things that eventually over time start to leak. So I'm going to spray that out in there, clean that up really good, and get that all set. So let me go ahead and get that out of there. Alright, so pulling that off, you can see it's kind of, if you're able to see that, kind of deformed. Flattened. So we got the new one. I'm going to put the new one in. Again, like usual, I'm going to use some Seal Glide on it. Makes it slide on easier and slide into place better without damaging it. All right, so we got a little bit of Seal Glide. I use this in all my carburetor videos and any kind of rubber parts that I'm doing. Alright, the seat looks good, nice and shiny inside there. So we're going to put the new rubber O-ring on. And with that Seal Glide on there, it's going to go into position nice and easy. And it's not going to deform it. Okay, so it's going to be in better condition than the one that we took out of there. That looks like it's been like that from the factory. So we're going to put our new, or not our new, we're going to replace the retainer plate in here. And that O-ring is important. I've seen those O-rings go bad, and people complaining about their bike leaking fuel, or their ATV leaking fuel, and they couldn't stop it, and they checked the float height, and the float height was good, and they don't know what's going on, and that's the problem. All right, so with our float needle, we're going to make sure that the spring works there, and that was working good. All right, the tip is nice and clean. Just going to spray with some lubricant, some WD-40, to make sure any water in there comes out. And then I'll hit it with some compressed air. Put it back on. Drop it into place. Now with our pin right here, I'm just going to clean this pin up with a piece of scuff pad. Just to get any burrs or anything off, any fuel residue. And I'm going to slide that back into place. And this you'll have to tap in. Is the way we took it out, if you remember, we had to grab it and really pull it, and just be gentle with it, and tap it back into place, and it'll go in just fine. All right, and then when you get close to it here, towards the end, you can use the automatic center punch that I used to get it out if you wanted to sit here and just kind of knock it back in. All right, so we got that back all in place. Gonna look at the float height. The float height here is supposed to be 13 millimeters. Okay, and the book describes you to just put it down on the surface like that. Have your float sitting here, and these floats are just, remember, they're not pushed down, they're just sitting in there, resting. 13 millimeters, and we're a little bit, we're just about on there. There you go. It's just a little bit, it's about maybe a half a millimeter. So it's plus or minus 1, so we're good. Alright, so for the slides, just take a little bit of lubricant, whether you want to use WD-40 or whatever you like to use. And then I just use that and just clean up the slide. Get any fuel residue off of there. Make sure you don't get any carburetor cleaner on this. That's why I'm using WD-40 when I'm around it. And then this right here, you can use the WD and just kind of, or the imitation brand that I use right there. Just kind of wipe that off. I'm just trying to get that crud that was on the edge off with my fingers here. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Take your needle, do the same thing. You can see the residue on there. It's kind of green on the end. All right, we want to get all that off of there. All right, nice and clean. That drops back into here. And don't forget your retainer, right? So this is the needle retainer. This drops back down into there. Just make sure that falls flat on there. And then your spring will hold the needle in place. All right, so we're going to set that aside. Get back to the carburetor body. So when I took the carburetor out and dunked it in the water to clean it up, the mixture screw, washer, and the O-ring came out of there. So let's get that ready. So you have the spring. These always go together the same way. You got the spring, washer, and then I'm going to use some of the Seal Glide again on this O-ring, because these O-rings, they sit in there a while. You can replace them. If you get a full kit, it will come with a new one. There's usually a flat side if you look close at it. And on this particular one, the flat side's on this side. I got to use a magnifying glass for that. So I got a little seal light on there just so we don't get any issues and it doesn't snag up. I'm going to put it back in the mixture screw. So there we are, back all together. Drop that in there. You guys remember what this was set to? 3 1/4. Seems like a lot. That's where it was. I don't know how it was running. If it's running bad, I'll adjust it from there. But I'm just going to go ahead and... I'm not sure if this carburetor was out before, so... So there's our 3 1/4. They're out. And what you can do is just kind of screw this in a little bit and then push down on it, and that will pop it loose for you. And there's our emulsion tube now that's pushed up in there, and then we can get it out the rest of the way. Alright, and this is something like, this looks clean like I expected. It was clean inside of there. But if you take this out, there's a groove right there. See that groove? It has to go back in here a certain way. And if you look on here, you can see the groove right there. And it needs to match together. And it's kind of a pain if you haven't done it before. But you know, if you have a carburetor that's really nasty and green and dirty, and old fuel is left in it, you have to take this out and clean it. I didn't think this one was going to be that dirty. You can see through the holes, and it looks nice and clean. That bath in there does really good for cleaning these up. So, but if it's something you're concerned about, you know, just get in there, get it out, Q-tip in there, make sure that's all good, and then we're dropping it back in. So dropping it back in, you got to make sure it goes in the right direction. So we have there's our groove. We might have to rotate it when we get it back down inside there, but now remember you have the bowl off, so you got to be gentle. So I'm going to use my stalks here, but I'm not squeezing it really hard, just enough so I can get it where I need to get it. Try to start it in the right direction. Get it down in there. All right, so it just falls down in. If you look in there, it fell into the groove already, so I'm good. I'm going to push it in with my finger a little bit. I'm going to hold it with my finger. I'm putting the washer in, put the main jet back in. This will pull it all back into place. And with that little groove, it's not going to let it rotate. So make sure when you turn this one in, you snug it in enough that you can feel it kind of pulling it in slightly, and then it'll get tight, and that's good. All right. So now let's get this bowl gasket replaced. These get in here dry and crusty, so sometimes they're hard to get out. When you pull it out there, I'm going to take a brush. I'm going to clean up all that crap in there and get that all nice and clean. Little seal glide on the gasket. That'll help it stay in place when we put it in here. All right, new bowl gasket in place. And if we talk about Phillips heads and GIS screws, if you look at this really close, there's a little dot. There's a dot right there. See that dot? That dot means it's a GIS screw. Japanese industry standard. There's a special Phillips head for that. So I'll make a video about that in my tech tip videos, so stay tuned. So with these bowl screws, you don't have to get them gorilla tight. Just get them nice and get them on there, snug. Now before I put this back on the four-wheeler, and if you're staying tuned to my channel, you'll see the video for that, about getting this four-wheeler back up and running. Before I do that, I'm going to make sure I dump the fuel and get fresh gas in there. So let's put the slide back in. And don't forget you have a jet up here too. This is this controls the speed of the slide and different things. You want to make sure that's nice and clear also. This right here is your vent line. You can see the hole right there. Otherwise, this won't be able to slide up and down. It'll stick. When you're dropping this in, make sure the needle goes into where it's supposed to go. So look inside there. Make sure the needle's dropped inside. Spring. This cap has those little curved tabs, so it doesn't matter which way this goes on. Same thing with these, don't over tighten them. But I'm holding the cap down with my thumb to make sure that the diaphragm doesn't come out of its groove. All right, when you do it, make sure when you're done that you reach in here and make sure that this operates nice and smoothly. You should be able to push that thing all the way up and it should still come back. If you push it up and it stays, your diaphragm is damaged. All right, push it up and let it go down. And then you're good to go. Then you know it's going to be working fine. And that's all there is to rebuilding these. These are, this one is ready to go. So I set the adjustment back to 3 1/4. This will run just fine when you put it back on the bike and fire it up. Make sure fresh gas is going into your carburetor. Make sure there's no water in your fuel, and you'll be good to go. Guys, hopefully this will help you out. Please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for further notifications. Until next time, this is TEPCO Cycle Repair.